Welcome to the New Hampshire Campaign for Legal Services annual breakfast.
For 2 decades, the Campaign for Legal Services has supported the Legal Advice and Referral Center and New Hampshire Legal Assistance by bringing together business, legal, and philanthropic organizations with a common goal: protecting the rights of the most vulnerable Granite Staters.
This year's celebration of the 50th anniversary of New Hampshire Legal Assistance and the 25th anniversary of the Legal Advice and Referral Center comes at a time when the services that these organizations provide are more important than ever before.
As you all know, this pandemic has exacerbated challenges that vulnerable Granite Staters experience, including the ability to access food, shelter, and health care, and to be free from domestic abuse.
This past year has not been easy, but NHLA and the Legal Advice and Referral Center adapted and continued to protect the basic rights of our state's most vulnerable members.
The access to justice gap touches us all, and that is why it is so encouraging to see the ever-expanding reach of this campaign.
As we mark the 50th anniversary of New Hampshire Legal Assistance and the 25th anniversary of LARC, I also want to thank everyone who has given their time and energy through those years.
Today's event is particularly special as we will hear from some of the giants of civil legal services in New Hampshire.
And I want to congratulate the John E. Tobin Justice Award winner, Deborah Kane Rein.
My colleagues and I are so pleased that Deborah Kane Rein is being recognized for her extraordinary service over so many years.
Thank you to the many professionals and advocates who do this important work year after year.
Thank you for everything that you do to ensure the legal system provides the fairness and justice that every Granite State resident deserves.
So thank you for all the work that you do to make New Hampshire a better and stronger place.
And keep up the really good work.
Thank you again for the work you do, and enjoy your breakfast.
Thank you for joining us today, for your support of the campaign, and for your commitment to ensure access to justice in New Hampshire.
Good morning and welcome to the Capitol Center for the Arts here in Concord, New Hampshire for this live presentation of the 2021 Campaign for Legal Services Kickoff Breakfast. My name is Ovid Lamontagne with the law firm of Bernstein Shore, and I'm honored to serve as this year's co-chair of the campaign. Many of you, I wish we could all be together, but we hope next year we'll be together and be able to celebrate the achievements made by legal aid in New Hampshire. We promise to wrap this up by 9 o'clock, so please stay with us through the entire hour so you can see and learn about the history of these programs. Thank you to Chief Justice McDonnell, Senator Shaheen, Senator Hassan, Congresswoman Custer, Congressman Pappas, and Attorney General Formella for your kind, welcoming remarks. They were right on. You are all part of a long tradition of bipartisan support for civil legal aid in New Hampshire, and we are grateful to your continued commitment to access for justice and to justice for all. Thank you also to our sponsors for this morning's breakfast, including Bernstein Shore, Nixon Peabody, Northeast Delta Dental, Sheehan Finney, Bass and Green, and many more. New Hampshire's legal aid programs help people experiencing economic hardship when they face problems impacting their most human basic needs. The need for a home, the need for food, the need for safety. During the pandemic, this work has become more important than ever. Helping a family keep their housing so they can be sheltered safely and they can provide their children an effective remote learning. Helping a worker access unemployment insurance benefits and prevent bills from piling up during a time of extreme stress. Helping a domestic violence survivor reach safety so she can start rebuilding her life. These are some of the ways New Hampshire legal aid programs have helped clients throughout the pandemic. New Hampshire Legal Assistance and the Legal Advice and Referral Center have been an essential component of the New Hampshire legal aid response effort. These organizations have responded nimbly and effectively, for example, by launching online eviction clinics that help people navigate the eviction process and understand their rights. This morning, we gathered together to look back not only this past extraordinary year, which was made successful thanks to you, but to pause and look back further because this year the legal aid programs are celebrating two very special anniversaries. The Legal Advice and Referral Center is marking its 25th anniversary, while the New Hampshire Legal Assistance is marking its 50th. Today, we have the opportunity to look back on the program's history of service to justice, a history that stretches back half a century. And today, we also have the opportunity to raise essential funds to make sure that these organizations are ready for whatever comes next as they strike out this year and into the next 50 years. Since this campaign started more than 20 years ago, a small group of firms have led by example. These are our Pace Center law firms who make charitable gifts of $500 or more per attorney. Last year, when legal aid needed to be there more than ever, more firms in New Hampshire stepped up the pace. And thank you very much to our 2021 Pace Center law firms, Ansel and Anderson, Gallagher, Callahan and Gartrell, Orr and Reno, Rath Young and Pignatelli, and McLean Middleton. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce my friend, colleague, and this year's co-chair of the 2020 campaign, Michael Delaney of McLean Middleton. Mike will be presenting our annual Johnny Tobin Award. Mike, welcome. All right, I'm gonna do that. There we go.
Thank you, Ovid. Good morning, Deb. And good morning to everyone joining us today. McLean Middleton is proud to be a partner in the effort to sustain and enhance access to justice in New Hampshire. You have heard today that legal aid has been more important than ever during the pandemic. And that means that our commitment to support legal aid is more important than ever. It is my privilege this morning to present the John E. Tobin Jr. Justice Award to Deborah Kane Rein. This annual award recognizes individuals and organizations who have, through concrete actions or inspired advocacy, increased access to justice for vulnerable and disenfranchised people. For Deborah, justice is a calling. She began her legal career as a staff attorney at Legal Services of Middle Tennessee before returning home to her native New Hampshire to join our own New Hampshire Legal Assistance. The work then was much as it is now. Deborah worked alongside her clients to protect their homes, navigate complex public benefit systems, and rebuild their lives after an abusive marriage. From NHLA, Deborah went on to inspire the next generation of attorneys at the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce School of Law, where she helped create the Civil Practice Clinic and trained law students to represent children in custody and child protection cases. For the majority of her career, Deborah, as we know, served as a marital master, deciding thousands of sensitive family law cases. Deborah's achievements were recognized in 2010 with the New Hampshire Women's Bar Association Marilla M. Ricker Achievement Award. After leaving the bench, Deborah continued to help people find resolution to complex disputes as a mediator with Hess Garris Solutions. And starting in 2011, Deborah served on the overlapping boards of the Legal Advice and Referral Center and New Hampshire Legal Assistance for nearly a decade, including as chair. But Deborah wasn't done yet. Since 2018, she has led a complex statewide effort to redesign how civil legal aid is delivered in New Hampshire. Her leadership of this work over these past 2.5 years will culminate next month with a massive step forward for people experiencing economic hardship in New Hampshire: the merger of the Legal Advice and Referral Center and the Bar Association's pro bono referral program. The new legal aid program, to be called 603 Legal Aid, will maintain a vibrant volunteer attorney program. It will operate a centralized intake and advice phone center and will partner more closely than ever before with New Hampshire legal assistance. This transformative change, which will make legal aid in New Hampshire stronger than ever, would not have been possible without Deborah's determination, her passion, her leadership, and above all, her commitment to putting legal aid clients first. She has devoted countless hours of volunteer work, countless virtual meetings to make this transformative change a reality. Deb, before I present your award, we have a surprise for you. And there's nothing better than dropping a surprise on someone during a virtual live program. With a seed gift of $2,500 from an anonymous supporter, a group of your friends and colleagues have offered to match the first $6,500 pledged today by our audience members. Thank you, Ann Barber, Martha Copathorn, Phil Cross, Bruce Dalpra, Harriet Fishman, David Forrest, Mike Garner, Jonathan Kane, Nancy Kane and Barry Cox, Tim Kane and Beth George, Pam Kelly, Jennifer Lemire, Alice Love, Kathleen McDonald, Kathleen McGuire, Diane Nicolosi, Connie Rakowski, Emily Rice, and Terry Stirk and Tom Bell. So if you are watching at home and you want to help us meet this challenge, all you need is your phone. Start a new text message. In the to field, type 56512. That's 56512. In the message, put the word kickoff, all one word, and then put a $sign, and then your pledge, then a space, and then type your name. We'll see it come up here, and we'll check back in a few minutes this morning. Deborah, your lifelong commitment to the principle of equal justice under the law has inspired your friends and colleagues for so many years. Your work has made New Hampshire a better and fairer place. We thank you for your career of service and for the extraordinary legacy you have created. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Mike and Ovid. And that was an extraordinary surprise. Thank you. And thank you to all my friends for making that surprise possible. I appreciate it. I want to thank all of our friends here today for supporting equal justice. This is a great honor for me in so many ways. First, with this award, my name is linked with John Tobin, a dear friend of mine and a longtime colleague. Second, it actually will perpetually connect me to my legal services career, which started when I was a law student, second-year law student in 1976 at New Hampshire Legal Assistance, where I worked as an intern. Most importantly, though, it gives me an opportunity to thank my fellow members of the Legal Services Statewide Planning Committee, who made the merger of LARC and pro bono a reality. When it became clear that we could improve our legal services delivery system in New Hampshire, a group of us convened to come up with a better plan. We met every other week for, at this point, almost 3 years. I don't think that any of us missed more than 1 or 2 meetings in all that time. The commitment was extraordinary, and I've never worked with a more creative, tenacious, selfless group of people in my life. So, I want to publicly thank Dana Bisbee, Sarah Matson-Dustin, Samantha Elliott, Brecky Hayes Snow, Ginny Martin, George Moore, Brian Shaughnessy, and Kathy Chanelaris. Not one of them wavered, keeping their eyes on the prize the whole time. a better way to provide legal services to those in need. I must give a special shout out to Sarah Matson-Dustin, Executive Director of New Hampshire Legal Assistance, Brecky Hayes-Snow, Executive Director of LARC, and Ginny Martin, Director of the New Hampshire Bar Association's Pro Bono program, all of whom had the responsibility of running their own programs through a pandemic, no less, while also preparing and planning for a new one. I especially want to acknowledge Brecky and Ginny, neither of whom will continue on in their executive director roles, but both of whom have been extraordinary leaders in making their respective programs the successes that they are. The new executive director of 603 Legal Aid, Sonia Belafent, whom you will meet later today, follows in exemplary footsteps. 603 Legal Aid and New Hampshire Legal Assistance share a common mission to make justice a reality for and with people who experience economic hardship that threatens their basic human needs. As Brian Stevenson has said, the opposite of poverty is not wealth, it is justice. 603 Legal Aid and New Hampshire Legal Assistance exist to bring that possibility of justice to people who face housing and food insecurity, who face violence at home, and who fight for dignity against power every single day of their lives. Thank you to all of you for your interest in and commitment to making sure that our most vulnerable citizens have equal access to justice. Please continue to donate to the Campaign for Legal Services. And if you are an attorney, please consider volunteering your legal services to those in need through 603 Legal Aid. We'll be calling on you. With the help of all of you and our partners in the court system, in the Access to Justice Commission, the New Hampshire Bar Association, and with all of our community partners and those wonderful people who spoke earlier, we will make justice a reality for all. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah, and how gracious of you to spend so much of your time talking about and thanking others. And in ordinary times, we would have all of your friends and colleagues with us here in this auditorium. I'm sorry we could not fill this room today with your friends and colleagues, but we do have a brief message from some familiar faces celebrating you and this moment.
Hi, Deb. We are not experts at Zoom recordings, but nevertheless, we are here on behalf of the thousands of people whose lives are better because of you to say thank you. You have touched so many lives throughout your legal career, all through the stages of that career, while you were at Legal Services and when you were on the bench, and over the past few years, working as a mediator with all of us.
We watched you spend your spare time volunteering for New Hampshire Campaign for Legal Services and other organizations offering support to those who need legal representation when you weren't on the tennis court.
You have been a mentor to so many, including other attorneys, including Hannah and Esther, and all of us.
We know you are continuing to lift people up in your community in Florida. Many of the people you have helped can't be here, so we are.
For them and for us, thank you again for all you've done, for all that you stand for and believe in, for all that you do every day to make the world better. Thank you. We miss you.
Congratulations, Deborah. Very well done. What a worthy honoree for this year's kickoff breakfast. And well, now we want to see what kind of support we're getting, and we're doing pretty well. Thank you for your support out there, wherever you are, at home, in your office, and those of you who may be watching this later. We thank you for your generosity, and we'll check back a little later in the program to see how we're doing in terms of contributions coming in this morning. In recognition of LARC's 25th anniversary and NHLA's 50th, our keynote program today is a series of conversations with just a few of the people who've helped build these programs over the years, and some who are still building them today. As Deborah mentioned, please stay with us through the end for a special conversation with the new Executive Director of 603 Legal Aid, Sonia Belafont. But we'll start at the beginnings. 50 years ago, 2 legal aid programs joined forces, one in New Hampshire quickly growing in the southern tier and another in its rural north. George Bruno led the statewide nonprofit law firm New Hampshire Legal Assistance. He's speaking today with Connie Boyles-Lane, who served as the first executive director of the Legal Advice and Referral Center in 1996.
I'm very proud to celebrate the 50th anniversary of New Hampshire Legal Assistance. I think it's one of the great cornerstones of American democracy that programs such as this exist. Look, the court system itself was very grateful for the establishment of these legal services programs. It did a number of things. It passed a rule waiving filing fees. Then it adopted another rule allowing law students to go into court, particularly small claims court, and actually represent low-income clients. And then you had the relief of many judges who found it extremely frustrating trying to deal with pro se clients and breathed a sigh of relief when they saw a legal services lawyer alongside of a person trying to articulate an issue.
You know, the 10 years that I was in the legal services community are the ones that I'm the most proud of. I'm very proud of what we accomplished at LARC. And because we took what we did at LARC and then we went out and we showed other people across the country how to do it. It was, we won a lot of our system, not just LARC, but NHLA, and everybody won awards and recognition nationwide. And people wanted to know why it was working, what we would have done differently. And nobody wants to be poor, and nobody wants to not be able to afford an attorney. And the reason that they are in the positions they're in, I would listen, and it was a disability in the family, their disability, an illness in the family, a horrible financial situation came up. And it just made me think there but for the grace of God. And it made me realize how much we need to help each other as a community, as well as helping each other from a legal standpoint.
And I agree with that. And for me, it was a calling. And for many of the people I worked with, it's a calling beyond simply being a lawyer. It's a calling for public service.
I would agree. That's the main reason that I went into legal assistance, and why most everybody I know who's in there does it, is they sounds very corny, but equal justice for all.
I've been here for just over 2 years now. And John, from what I understand, you used to work in the Berlin office, and I'd love to hear your experiences.
Well, Chelsea, it's really exciting for me that you're there. I spent a decade in the Berlin Office of Legal Assistance. It was my formative years as a young lawyer, as an adult too, I guess I would say. And it's just very exciting that you're there. And one of the things, Chelsea, that was interesting about being up there in the middle 70s was the paper mill was thriving. There were thousands of people that worked there. And there was also this big Converse sneaker factory that was going 3 shifts, 24/7. And they were all union jobs. They were all good union jobs. The people who worked in those factories and mills made too much money to be eligible for legal assistance. They actually made more money than the young legal aid lawyers. And it was a really thriving place, and really a multi-generational family place. And I was there for a lot of the downturn of that. And that was tragic. That was really hard. It hit families hard.
What you described as Berlin is completely different than the Berlin I know. Mm-hmm. It's tough for someone that is, even maybe middle class up here to afford an attorney.
There's a sort of a sense of special obligation to go to a place that has few other resources. And, the North Country had few other legal resources. It had fewer social service agencies. It had more poverty. It was more isolated economically. So I definitely felt kind of a special responsibility. And the clients, my memory is a lot of the clients didn't have transportation, and there really wasn't any public transportation to speak of. So I remember a lot of times going to pick up my client to bring him or her to court.
In my position, we're unable to pick up clients just due to the safety precautions with domestic violence survivors.
That makes sense.
So we have to really coordinate with our crisis center partners to make sure that they have, maybe a gas card, so they're able to make sure that they get to court or they get to our client meetings.
That collaboration is great. That is really, that's wonderful. And that's definitely an improvement. So that's neat to hear.
I know up in Coos County and Northern Grafton, we have a strong legal community. Mm-hmm. Attorneys are very welcoming, especially me as a new attorney. They were very welcoming and helpful. How was the legal community for you back when you were up here?
It was very welcoming. It was larger. When I was in Coos County, there were about 45 lawyers, and now it's my understanding there may be 15. So it was a larger legal community, and it was welcoming. The other thing that happened while I was there, which was pretty amazing, is we had a young staff attorney come to work for us, Maggie Popkin, and she was the first female lawyer in Coos County.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that. That's amazing.
The other thing I can say about the Berlin office is it was the key to first getting a state appropriation. I went to the legislature to try to get some state funding, and what was most compelling to the legislators was the needs of the North Country. So initially, for 4 or 5 years, the state funding was just for the Berlin office to keep it open.
Yeah, I think without funding and funders, we would struggle probably to have a Berlin office. And right now, our Berlin office is almost entirely fully staffed. So it's really an exciting time for the North Country to have such a full office.
And it's very heartening to me as an old veteran of that office to see it rejuvenated like that, because I know what it means to the community. It means people who have really serious problems are getting help from really talented, dedicated people who are up there.
I direct the Domestic Violence Advocacy Project at New Hampshire Legal Assistance. We represent victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking in their domestic violence protective order cases, as well as their stalking protective order cases. We also represent victims and survivors in their high lethality, divorce, and parenting cases. And so when I say high lethality, we're talking about victims and survivors who are, there's a high likelihood that they will be killed by their partner or seriously injured or harmed in some way. I know that Campbell, you have so much history with this program. You really got us started. You're a founder of DVAP, and I would just really love to hear about the work that you were doing when you were at NHLA and how you got us started on this path.
What's really interesting to me, Erin, is how little has changed in terms of NHLA's role. That when I first started at Legal Assistance in 1977, the only divorces we didn't have the language you have, but the only divorces we did were ones where people were in danger of being seriously injured or killed. And the only tools that we had were to file for a divorce with a request for emergency temporary restraining orders. It was a huge amount of paperwork. So we wanted to streamline the process and allow people to get restraining orders without having to go through a lawyer. So we looked at all the states and what they were doing and took the best, what we thought was the best from different states and drafted New Hampshire's the original version of 173B.
So how did that come to be? I mean, I imagine at that time, it sounds like you were really trailblazing this new law, and I'm sure it didn't come easily. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
It was a lot of work. The drafting of the bill and finding a couple of sponsors was the easy part. It was lobbying it through a very male-dominated landscape. We've, of course, had to get the police on our side. They were very resistant. In 1977 and 78, a man's home was considered his castle. Women's safety was not a concern. It was concern about men's privacy and dominion over their turf. So back in the first legislative hearings on 173B, we had put in a tremendous amount of effort getting survivors of domestic violence to come to the legislature to tell their story as to why we needed a statute like 173B. And we had, I think, about 200 women, some of whom wanted to speak, some of whom had written their stories to submit to the legislature. And the hearing room in front of the House Judiciary Committee was absolutely packed. And the head of a Judiciary Committee let me testify, and as the lawyer who had written the bill, the sponsors testified. I think 2 women testified, and then he closed the hearing and just said that was enough, and sent everybody home. And the news journalists wrote the story up. I remember the headline was, "The committee has no time for women," which was a huge gift to us because it was politically shaming, and they had to reopen the hearing and take the testimony of the women who were willing and able to come back to testify.
And I can say for the clients that we have served at NHLA, it has really meant so much. In many cases, oftentimes the difference between life and death. And it's given so many people an opportunity to grow and to blossom and to do so safely. So I'm just so very appreciative of the work that you did to put this in place. It really has made a difference.
Thank you very much, Erin. Another thing that gives me hope, Erin, is how you and the judicial system and the coalition came together to meet the problem of COVID and to figure out new ways of reaching out.
Yeah, thank you. That was really incredible. Just to identify that problem so quickly and then to turn it around. And I would say within a month and a half, maybe 2 months, that we were able to put something in place that, really was it was a game changer. I mean, this is a game changer, and really allowed a process for people to get protected just in a different way. And you're right, it's not just one person, one organization doing it. It's about the collaboration. And having those different players at the table and just putting our heads down saying, how do we do this? How do we fix this? This is the problem. And to just get that done so quickly was incredibly impressive, I think. Everyone had a willingness and everybody was on the same page. And you're right. That says hope to me.
Yeah, that's a huge cultural shift. That there's a whole community of different players out there that are working together on this very serious, potentially lethal social problem.
One of my really proud moments in terms of the work we've done in housing occurred in the legislature several decades ago, and I'm not going to name any names. And as the then Senate president walked by me, he turns his head and he says to me, haven't they shot you yet? And what that meant to me is that, he recognizes that we've been doing work for people who are not very popular and certainly don't have much political power. When people don't have shelter, every other aspect of their life is threatened. Their access to food, medical services, their ability to even receive income.
Sometimes people are paying huge percentage of their income for their housing, and they should get what they pay for.
I think the biggest success is the virtual end to arbitrary evictions, that the passage of the good cause eviction statute.
I never talked to people that were facing that kind of a situation, so that was a huge change.
Very early on, we were able to get to work with advocates and residents of manufactured housing parks. And we now have a law that says before an investor, a landlord, or a park owner can sell their park to another investor, they have to give the tenants 60 days to organize an association. And now we have over 120 manufactured housing parks where the residents are the landlord. That gives them more security.
I think I've heard you say this before, Elliot, is that even though things have changed a great deal in some ways, they're not really a whole lot better. People still face all kinds of problems with their rental housing.
In New Hampshire, over the last 5 years, I would say that there have been about 7,000 people evicted. That is 7,000 households per year. And, that's just way too many. Again, especially when you look at the difficulty of getting them rehoused, the loss of access to schools where kids have been it's successful, the loss of a job because you had to go too far away to get it, and the inability to get a job or a new place because of the eviction on your record. There's so many things that are adversely affected. The work that LARC does, and sometimes we do, in defeating evictions on technical grounds are really, really important to enable people to get the time they need so they don't end up homeless as a result of the eviction.
There are 4 motions that we provide to tenants that lay out the legal argument for certain defenses. They fill in their own names and dates and things of that nature. They can submit those to the court. And they're written in such a way that tenants can argue them also. And then there are other remedies available to those landlords to recover. For example, if they are owed money, they can sue their tenants in small claims court. But we're just making sure that people know what their rights are and that they're able to make what we call a graceful exit from their property.
We need a lot more resources to cut that number way, way down. Out of those 7,000, I would suggest that 2/3 of them can be avoided.
I'd love to hear a little bit about the work you've been doing with the Fair Housing Unit and some of the new improvements and changes that have happened over the last couple of years.
We are really excited. Since last time we spoke, we have a new grant that from HUD. Now instead of having an enforcement grant, we have this outreach grant. It's making us even expand our work even more and bring education and awareness of the Fair Housing Act and the protections that exist. So we launched a new fair housing website exclusively for fair housing issues. So I'm really excited about. As you know, when you were at NHLA about language access issues, that is one of the areas that we really wanted to promote. A lot of the immigrant communities, they live in fear. They try to advocate for themselves, there might be consequences they don't know. So having NHLA to be there for them to say, no, it's okay, it is the law, there are protections, and be able to help them protect their housing and their benefits, all of the areas that are vital for your survival.
Right. They're also interconnected. I don't think that you can underestimate the impact that NHLA plays as a leader in the state and as a advocate and a proponent of those rights that are available to those that need them, both that have language access issues or need the protections of the Fair Housing Act. But I also know that the challenges remain, and particularly as New Hampshire as a state continues to become more diverse, more people come to the state who may speak a language other than English. So Maria, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on thinking about where NHLA has been. What are your hopes for the future with respect to better improving the needs of people who are limited English proficient and protections that they can gain from the Fair Housing Act?
Yes, I mean, we in our Fair Housing Project, which, NHLA is the only agency in the state that has funds from HUD to promote fair housing protections and enforce the fair housing laws. We are constantly expanding, and a lot more advocates are given hours because we see the need. With a lot of the immigrant communities, the refugees that coming from all these different parts of Africa, they speak different languages, there's huge challenges. They're not always given information in their own language. Their culture is so different. They faced evictions for things they don't comprehend.
What are some of the other categories of people that are protected by the fair housing law, and are you seeing any particular challenges right now?
We have seen an increase on evictions for families with children, noise complaints. So that has been an area that has increased due to COVID and, families trying to cope with the children at home, remote schools. So it has been an increase on that.
Are you seeing any successes recently that you feel good about?
What we have been able to get a lot more people being aware. Ever since the new website has been in the air, we have seen an increase in people knowing and calling. So that has been very helpful.
Hi, Sonia. So you're making a big leap to come join us in New Hampshire. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what drew you to wanting to be the founding executive director of 603 Legal Aid?
Certainly. So practicing law is actually my second career. I've worked in the nonprofit sector in a couple of states. And in some states, I've been privy to an intake system that was statewide. And in others, there was not a statewide intake system. And the patchwork oftentimes led to more frustration for the individuals who actually came to us for assistance. This is an opportunity for us to be able to establish a system that minimizes that frustration, optimizes the community resources and the access to our services, and then gives them that peace of mind, which will ultimately change the trajectory, not only for our client, but for the other individuals in that household, specifically the children. Curious though, given that I don't have much experience with New Hampshire, can you give me a little backdrop as to how the access to justice has worked in New Hampshire historically?
Sure. So one really important tool that we have to reflect on that is the Civil Legal Needs Assessment that was just published by the Access to Justice Commission. Anyone who's listening, you can find it on the Access to Justice Commission section of the Judicial Branch website. And this needs assessment really helped us to analyze what we're doing well and where we have room to grow. One of the things that it is, it was a great project, and I think gives us a really helpful roadmap for the next several years. So one of the things that we learned is that the legal aid system in New Hampshire, although it's widely respected, can be perceived as confusing, both for potential clients who are trying to access the system and for service providers who are working with people with low income. People aren't exactly sure where to call. They might call more than one place. And so I think that the centralized intake call center that will be hosted at 603 Legal Aid is going to, as you described it, revolutionize access in New Hampshire by really having a one-stop shop model. One of the other things that we learned from the needs assessment is that there is a really consistent call for us to have more capacity. People want us to have more lawyers. They want us to be able to have longer hours. And those are great goals that we'll strive toward together. But in the reality of limited resources, having a system that is as efficient and easy to access as possible will help us to reach more people.
I agree. I think across the country, what we're seeing is the population that we serve, unfortunately, grows at an alarming rate. And as disheartening as that is, we have a twofold objective and opportunity. The first is to advocate on behalf of those who need our assistance. The other is to empower and educate. And so we can reach a much larger percentage of the population eligible for our services by doing that in a twofold step-by-step process. And that's really one of the things that I hate to put it this way, but that kind of sets us apart from other legal services, in that we get to see the impact of empowerment as well as advocacy. And that 1-2 punch really goes a long way.
So Sonia, one of the other things that I am so excited about is for you to meet the wonderful community of people who support civil legal aid here in New Hampshire, from our campaign donors who are lawyers and people in the business community and other community leaders, to the members of the Access to Justice Commission who are so focused on what we can do to continue to expand access to justice in New Hampshire, to the fantastic New Hampshire Bar, which has had just a tremendous commitment to doing pro bono work. We need all of them. To everyone who's listening, we still need you. We will need you even more in the years ahead, and can't wait to continue having you on our civil legal aid team.
Well, thank you. I have to admit, the reputation for the community in New Hampshire, particularly the private bar and the community partners, it has already reached my ears long before I had reached the state border. People cannot speak well enough nor highly enough of the various entities, organizations, and individuals that have come together to ensure the success of New Hampshire legal assistance and, moving forward, 603 Legal Aid. And so to say that I am anxious is probably an understatement, but I too am eagerly looking forward to meeting all of the community partners and everyone that have worked tirelessly for the last 2.5 years to make 603 Legal Aid a reality, and to continue to support and sustain the work of the NHLA.
Let's do this.
All right, let's go.
Sonia, on behalf of the campaign, our honoree Deb, and on behalf of all of our supporters watching from home, we extend to you the warmest of welcomes to New Hampshire. We are so fortunate to have your talents and experience to lead us in this cause. And Sonia and Sarah, having watched your discussion, we are all so eager to see the expansions of access to justice that you make together. Thank you, everyone at home, for joining us this morning for this celebration. Thank you to Chris Conroy and the team at Heartwood Media for their work weaving these many stories together. What a history, what a remarkable archive of the impact these programs have had for people in need in New Hampshire. We've been streaming to you live here from the Capitol Center for the Arts Bank of New Hampshire stage in Concord. Thank you to the technical expertise of Rick Elliott, Paul Ogba, and the rest of the team from MFI Productions. Lastly, thank you, all of you who have been part of this incredible outpouring of support we have seen for these vital programs and the clients they serve. Together, you rose to the challenge and beyond, and we all look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day.